Good evening, dear listener. Tonight we drift not toward battle or glory, but to the silent edges of ritual. Perhaps you've settled under the hush of blankets, or you're simply letting the air settle around you like evening fog. Wherever you are, whatever rests heavy upon you, leave it now. You were selected before memory, perhaps at 6 or 7 years old, drawn from a noble line to serve a God who does not speak, but always watches. For 30 years you have lived by rules carved not in marble, but in breath and behavior. The crowd parts not with hatred, but awe. They watch as if witnessing a funeral. The lamp is placed in your hand. It glows faintly, trembling. The priest's hand does not linger as he lowers the loaf and pitcher beside you. Even the heavens seem reluctant to witness what is unfolded. Rome continues above. Its streets hum, its temples shimmer. Others tend the fire. You do not envy them. You only hope they are given time. Time to carry the flame without being consumed by it. The tomb is small, but your thoughts are vast. And so, the silence deepens. Not cruel now, but soft. Like a blanket, like dusk. Or like history itself. Slow, deliberate, and never quite asleep. Inside, you wait. The walls do not speak. The oil burns low, and yet you are still here. Still breathing, still remembering. Rome has not killed you, but it has buried you alive. A ritual both sacred and precise. And as the final drop of oil curls into smoke, as the flame dies without ceremony, you understand something simple and vast. The punishment was never just about your failure. It was about Rome's fear. Fear that even in silence, you might still carry meaning. That memory once lit might still smolder. The crowd watches, but they do not intervene. They cannot. The seal lowers. Not quickly, not cruelly, just firmly. Light narrows, then disappears. You are alone now. A silence is absolute. It is not death. Not yet, but it is. It's rehearsal. You sit, you breathe, you remember. Childhood games in courtyards of polished stone, a mother's lullaby. The scent of crushed myrtle. The moment the temple doors first closed behind you. Were you ever given a choice, and a sacrifice in one? Some weep quietly. Others avert their eyes. Few speak. You pass beneath the colonnade. Silver band presses against your forehead, engraved with the symbol of Vesta. It does not gleam. It never did. Rome does not want spectacle here. It wants order. You descend the path slowly, each step a sentence. The guards do not touch you. They don't need to. Resistance, you've learned, is another kind of fire, and Rome knows how to starve it. No marriage, no touch, no indulgence of voice or flesh or rebellion. You learn the duties young, to tend the fire, to keep it steady, to let no gust or silence extinguish it. You are not angry, not exactly that too, has been taken from you. Instead, you feel a kind of clarity. It's the kind that only comes when everything else has been stripped away. You recall the story of Cornelia, a Vestal virgin accused. During Emperor Domitian's reign, she too was buried. Her final words, as recorded, still echo. Does Caesar think I've had sex with a god, then? Because no mortal man touched me. Bitterly ironic, but Rome didn't require proof, only pattern, only obedience. You wonder now if this was truly about purity, or if it was always about control. The body is metaphor, the womb is empire's property, the silence is civic duty. Rome itself depends on it, or so they tell you. You walk slowly now, measured steps echoing through the chamber. The other women do not look at you. They do not need to. The quiet has already changed. Something is known. Something has been decided. You've arrived in the quiet corridors of the past, where memory softens and judgment sleeps. A hand that brushed your shoulder in the wrong way, or a lie told by someone seeking favor. In truth, you're not certain what was discovered. Perhaps there was nothing to discover. But the law does not require certainty. It requires precedent. You have not been beaten. You will not be. No blood may be spilled. That is forbidden. Instead, you will be sealed. Buried, yes, but ceremoniously, just beyond the city's edge in a chamber lined with stone, tall enough to stand in, narrow enough to remind you of the life you no longer own. Bread, water, an oil lamp, a cruel echo of the flame you once guarded. These are your companions now. Let your breath deepen. The modern world fades, and in its place rises something older than empire, older even than law. The temple doors open. The air smells of smoke, lavender, and oiled stone. You are not merely here to observe, you are chosen. The fire flickers steadily before you, but not brightly. Never bright. This is the sacred flame of Vesta, and it has never gone out. The wool of your stola itches lightly where it brushes your neck. The Pontifex Maximus stands in shadow, says nothing, but the silence around him deepens. You know what this means? A whisper, a rumor. The marble of the temple floor is cold beneath your bare feet. The tomb is not hidden, it waits. You pause at its lip, breathing the same air that has passed through centuries of judgment. The lamp flickers beside you. It smells faintly of olive oil and resignation. Outside, the sun hesitates. It does not rise quickly. You close your eyes now, not from fear, but from calm. The wind shifts. Somewhere beyond Rome's heavy walls, the Tiber begins its slow song again. You are no longer beneath the city's sacred stone, but near its edge. On a slope where judgment breathes through mist and morning, the scent of brackish water curls in the air, mingled with wet reeds, decaying wood, something sharper, coppery, metallic, old. 4 figures wait at the dock, their movements slow, ceremonial, but none are human. A dog, still and trembling. They only gesture. That is enough. Inside, the air is warm, animal breath, straw, old dust. The monkey chatters once. The dog pants close and urgent. Something brushes your ankle, a coil, a claw. You cannot tell, and the mouth of the sack draws closed. Leather cords cinch. Darkness becomes complete. The fabric clings, and then a jolt. You are lifted. Hoisted not with violence, but with finality. The fabric tightens. You feel pressure in your chest. A pop behind your eyes. The water finds seams. A slow seep. A cold kiss. Playing the steady pulse of your heartbeat. And then, even that begins to dim. The dog no longer pants. The rooster no longer stirs. The sack is still, and the river, as always, moves on. It carries the dead as it carries the living, with the same slow grace. Your body, knotted in fabric and meaning, begins to sink. Somewhere above, Rome stirs its morning fires. A senator sips watered wine. A magistrate dons his crimson sash. They do not think of you. They do not have to. The ritual has already spoken. Still, you remain upright, or sideways, or upside down. It's impossible to know. Or be torn open days later by fishermen who know better than to ask questions. There will be no tomb, no inscription, only rumor. And yet the punishment has worked, not because it has erased you, but because it has been seen, because it has been remembered. Because even now, as you slip deeper into water and sleep, someone, somewhere, still wonders what became of the boy who became the betrayer, who became the sack, who became the silence. The river churns softly above you, indifferent and slow. Scholars have puzzled over Pona Calais for generations. Why such a punishment? Why animals? Why the sack? Some say it was purely symbolic, designed to make parricide seem more grotesque than murder itself. Others suggest it was performance. Rome, as dramatist, as choreographer of moral order. Still others believe it was rooted in older rites, long forgotten, where death by drowning had sacred meaning. The edge of the dock presses briefly against your back, then it vanishes, and nothing. A monkey, silent but alert. A rooster tethered in straw. And a serpent coiled and drowsing in a woven cage. Together, they are symbols, and soon they will be something more. The creatures scream and scurry. You feel heat, then cold, then confusion. There is no up or down. The river doesn't care. It is carried worse. It carries everything. And yet, in this moment, you notice not the terror, but the strangeness of it. The symbols, the choreography. The meaning stitched into each element. Was the dog chosen for loyalty betrayed, the rooster for lost vigilance, the monkey for mockery of the father's role, the serpent for deceit? No one knows for certain. Even Rome, precise as it was, left space for interpretation. Your wrists are bound. Not roughly, nothing here is rough. Everything is precise. A father's voice, stern and familiar. Childhood meal beneath fig trees. The heavy hand of discipline. Is there kindness there, or only duty? Is that the fracture between you comes suddenly, or like rot, quiet and slow and irreversible? The water presses harder. The dog howls once, a low moan swallowed by fabric and current. The monkey shrieks, then silence. Something brushes your cheek, fur, feather, scale. You do not flinch. There is no room to flinch. The sack is warm with panic, with heat, with history. The penalty is pona cole, the punishment of the sack. The seams gleam faintly where fresh thread has been drawn tight. The dog is placed inside first, still growling, confused. Its legs scrabble briefly against the canvas, then fall still. Next comes the monkey, squirming once, then vanishing into the dark. You're made to kneel. The ground beneath is damp, but not muddy. Rome ensures the ritual is clean. Rooster flaps, shedding a single feather that drifts toward you like a sentence too soft to read. It disappears into the sack. Then the serpent. A hand opens the cage. It slides forward slowly, with dreamlike grace. The snake does not protest. It simply joins. A sentence so strange, so vivid, that even centuries later it whispers across the pages of law books and legend. You do not struggle. Struggling is a luxury for the innocent. And in Rome, innocence is not what is proven. It is what is permitted. A man who has killed his father, or is merely accused of doing so, is not just a criminal. He is an unmaker, a breaker of order itself. For in the Roman world, patria potestas, the power of the father, is sacred. To strike against it is to unravel the very myth of Roman family. And so the state does not merely execute, composes. The sack lies open at the river's edge. It is large and heavy, stitched with care. You are the fifth. The last. You step forward, not dragged, not forced. The guards beside you do not raise their hands. You fall. The water closes like a door. There is no light now, only movement. The sack thrashes. You drift, not toward peace, but toward memory. Your breath becomes ragged, but it continues. Perhaps for seconds, perhaps for a minute. You cannot tell. Time bends. And yet, in the stillness that follows, there is no revelation. The sack will vanish beneath reeds, or be caught on driftwood. The air tastes different here. Thin, chalky, touched by wind that has passed over both grave and altar. You are no longer near the Tiber, no longer among the slow hum of river reeds or ceremonial shadows. Instead, the land slopes upward, gently at first, then with sudden defiance. Sparse olive trees clutch at the earth, their roots exposed like veins. Limbs stiffen in odd directions. Muscles spasm downward when they should climb. The breath becomes shallow, uncertain. Perhaps he has passed that threshold. Or perhaps he never intended to scream. His lips move slightly, not in prayer, but in memory. Or maybe it is only the wind. Your gaze follows the line of his legs to the timber above, then to the sky. The cross in this position does not reach upward. Dust has gathered in shallow patterns where rain has carved memory into stone. You kneel, your knees touching warm earth. The man's fingers twitch, not because it is over, but because it is understood. The cross does not speak. It creaks. It leans slightly with the weight of what it carries. Rome will forget him for a while, then remember him, reshaped. His death will be taught in marble chapels, painted in gold. But the truth of it, the body, the blood, the breath, remains here, on this hill, on this wood, in this silence. Perhaps from pain, perhaps from thought. There is no audience today. The crowd has dispersed. Only the guards remain, disinterested, their shift nearly over. But the image remains. A man hanging not above us, but beneath. A reversal of position, of power, of narrative. It points downward, like a finger pressed into the earth, a reversal of altar and offering. He would not die like his teacher, not honored, not upright. But Rome and its cruelty also gave him legacy. For this upside-down death, so brutal, so strange, would echo through centuries. The inverted cross would come to mean many things: shame, humility, rebellion, even evil in later tales. But here in this hour, it means only this: that to turn the world upside down may sometimes be the only way to see it clearly. But more than the physical torment, there is something strange in the spectacle. The world is upside down to him. Sky below, ground above. There is no audience, no applause, only the slow rhythm of a man fading. And the truth that Rome, despite its stones and laws and firelit processions, could not stop the world from turning, or from turning upside down. A dry creak, like the hinge of an old door. You imagine what it feels like to hang that way. Not for minutes, but hours. To feel your own weight become your enemy. No. To know the end will come not by sword or flame, but by blood thickening, by the body turning slowly against itself. This was not about speed. It was about duration. Rome, ever the engineer, understood that spectacle required time. Peter, whether by will or submission, became part of that performance. Maybe that is the truth he wished to leave behind. The kingdom to come is not like this one. Somewhere, a senator is dressing in silk. Somewhere, a baker lights his oven. Somewhere, a child turns over in sleep, unaware that a man dies slowly just beyond the horizon. The city does not pause. It never does. But here, for a breath, the world holds still. You step closer, not to speak. There is nothing left to say, but to witness. To carry the image of this man, not as a martyr or criminal, but as a question that Rome has not answered. That the inversion reveals what the empire cannot. The absurdity of order, the fragility of spectacle. That humility, even in death, is a form of resistance. Some scholars call this crucifixion a humiliation, but others, poets, monks, mystics, have called it something else. A paradox, a final sermon, body made strange to make truth visible. Something disorienting, the human form made unnatural.
Oh, that you're familiar, but I'll kill her.
Like a reflection in water. Close, but unreachable. Rome did not choose this lightly. Inversion was not standard. It was used for the unruly, for the unforgettable, for those who challenged the very notion of what Rome meant. The grass is worn thin. The soil is too hard for crops. Nothing grows well on crucifixion ground. But something else rises here, tall and splintered, bound with rope and rusted nails. The cross stands not in triumph, but in version. Not upright, but downturned. Not as it was intended, but as it has come to be remembered. You step carefully along the uneven path, the scent of dust and dry wood thick in your lungs. And there, beneath the faint brush of dawn, just before the sun commits itself to the day, you see him? A man suspended by the ankles. Not high, but high enough. His arms are bound tightly above his head, but they dangle downward, toward the earth. His robes are smeared with dirt and blood, but they still cling to him with a certain formality, as if Rome has dressed its punishment with deliberation. This is no common thief, no slave. His head bobs gently in the breeze, inches from the ground, heavy with blood and silence. He breathes, but not easily. You approach not with pity, but with stillness. For this is not just punishment, it is statement. This is Peter. Once a fisherman, later a preacher, a follower of a man whose words outlived the empire's own proclamations. But here, on this hill outside the city walls, Peter is simply a body hung upside down. Not by whim, but by request. Tradition holds that he asked for it, not out of pride, but reverence. Not to die like his teacher, not to imitate, but to invert. The ground receives your weight with a sigh. Dry leaves crackle underfoot. The wind has stilled. Inverted crucifixion changes the body. The blood pools in the skull, darkening the lips, pressing behind the eyes. A crow watches from a nearby branch. Its feathers shine copper in the half-light. It does not caw, it only watches. No, the man does not cry out. You wonder what Peter sees? His eyes are half-lidded but open. The cross groans as the wind stirs again. Far below the hill, Rome glimmers with the first light of day. Domes shine, markets stir. The ground beneath the cross is worn, not from feet, but from time. It is said that Nero allowed this, that the emperor known for firelight and excess indulged Peter's final wish as a theatrical flourish. The sky shifts, its pale light seeps across the hill. The man's breathing slows. You rise quietly. And so, dear listener, you step back, not away, but aside. The wind curls around your shoulders, soft now. Dawn breaks without ceremony. The sky is colorless, not blue, not gray, but something in between, like parchment rubbed thin. You are no longer near the holy flame or the edge of Crucifixion Hill. This place bears no incense, no sacred hush. You've seen comrades vanish in the night, struck down by unseen hands. Worse still, you fled. Once. Just once. An order misunderstood. A retreat unplanned. It doesn't matter now. Rome does not require the full story. Requires obedience. And today, obedience will be restored through fear. Only recognition. His lips are parted not from fear, but from effort, as if holding in some last word he knows cannot be spoken. A club is passed to you, not a sword. That would be too clean, too kind. Part of the punishment includes exile from shelter. No food, no bedroll, no fire. You are not dead, but you are not fully living in the eyes of your legion. Not from force, from restraint. You could have refused, could have spoken out. But what would that change? Another stone, another body. You watch it. Grateful for something small and living. The other soldiers keep to themselves. No songs tonight, only breath. The scent of smoke curls from within the main camp. You are not allowed there. Not yet. Perhaps tomorrow. If the centurion deems the lesson complete, if your silence is proven sufficient, another man struck down not for guilt, but for ratio. And still you wonder, did this make you loyal? Or simply afraid? Rome would argue they are the same. Rome does not call it cruelty. It calls it correction. And correction in Rome is not gentle. It is geometry, an equation solved in blood and silence. You taste dust with every breath. Your back aches. The stars above you are cold and distant, arranged with the same indifference as the empire's laws. Somewhere nearby, another man, perhaps the one who struck the final blow, weeps quietly. No one tells him to stop. You understand? Rome does not allow weakness, but it permits grief. Briefly, quietly, alone. The club is heavy, its edge wrapped in leather. It is not made to slice. It is made to break. You do not remember stepping forward, you only remember the sound. The first strike lands with a crack that does not echo. It sinks, it settles. Then the second, then the third. The circle moves around him. No one says his name, but all of you remember it. A centurion approaches slowly, his boots kicking up dust in even rhythm. The body lies still in dust that now smells of copper. The centurion collects the stones again. Nothing is said. The punishment is complete. It will not be recorded. No inscription will bear witness to this. It was first recorded during the Republic, but it persisted well into the imperial era. One infamous use came under Crassus during the Spartacus rebellion. Failed campaign, a humiliated command. To restore discipline, Crassus ordered decimation. Hundreds of men watched as their comrades were clubbed to death, and yet they obeyed afterward. They fought harder. They won. What motivates more powerfully than the thought that the next body may be your own? But every man here will carry it, in jawlines tightened too early, in songs never sung again, in the way hands twitch during sleep. You stand motionless. The club rests at your feet, slick with history, and then, like all things in Rome, it continues. The formation reforms. The orders resume. Dead man is buried quickly, without rites. The tent rows are cleaned. Morning drills begin. His left hand swings a pouch, the leather faded and stained. It clicks faintly with movement, the unmistakable sound of stones. Not many, just enough. Instead, it smells of iron, old barley, and cold sweat. You stand within the boundaries of a Roman military encampment, square, disciplined, humming with the low tension of breath held too long. Around you, men shift uneasily in formation. Leather straps creak, shields thud against thighs. Eyes do not meet. The punishment is not yet named, but all of you know. You can feel it in the marrow. You've marched for weeks across provinces that do not want Rome's banners. The ritual is ancient. It is called decimatio, from decimus, Latin for tenth. When a cohort is accused of cowardice, mutiny, or disgrace, the punishment does not fall only on the guilty. It falls on 1 in 10, at random, as lesson, as law. The centurion opens the pouch. One by one, you step forward. Each soldier must draw. Most stones are blank. One is marked, scratched with red, a crude smear that means death. Your fingers brush velvet soft leather. You feel stones like teeth. Your breath catches. You pull blank. Your heart thuds anyway. A man 3 places down pulls the marked stone, stares at it for only a moment, then kneels. There is no protest, no pleading. The ritual does not allow it. He is not chosen for guilt, he is chosen for proximity. He shared your water, mended your bootstrap, sang Bodhi songs under the stars. Now he must die, not by executioner's sword, but by your hands. Rome is not subtle. It is not punishment delivered from above. It is carried out beside you, within your own ranks. Not just retribution, but purification. You form a circle. The condemned man does not look at you with hatred. The silence afterward is stranger than the act itself, but you do not forget. That night, you lie awake outside the camp walls. Decimation was rare, but real. Historians still write of it with a kind of horrified awe. In your hands, the memory of the club lingers. Your palms ache. A bee hovers nearby, lost in the chill. It lands on a discarded wineskin, then lifts again, uncertain. Turn onto your side. The ground is hard. Stars remain unchanged. The courtyard is quiet, but not serene. The kind of silence that lingers in spaces where voices once echoed. Arguments, laughter, commands. And now, only wind remains. Not because he chooses to, because he has been trained to. His robes are clean, but his hands tremble slightly where they rest on his knees. His head tilts as if listening for something long gone. A voice, perhaps, or memory, or both. He is not bound. He is not chained, and yet he does not move. The room smelled of salt and iron and burnt linen. He did not cry out, or if he did, no one remembers. Perhaps that is the cruelest irony. That language still lives inside him, pacing behind the walls of his ribs, gesture mistaken, a phrase misquoted, an enemy's lie repeated until it became record. You walk past him, the faint rustle of your tunic the only sound. You step into the street, the noise wrapping around you like a cloak. Perhaps he once wrote those lines. Perhaps he once read them aloud. You'll never know. The voice is gone. But the silence remains. And yet you carry the man with you. Not his name. That too has been lost. But his absence, his warning. Rome did not always kill those it feared. Sometimes it left them alive. Not to thrive, not to return, but to remind. The sun has shifted, casting the atrium into sharper angles. The scent of mint has faded. In its place, the dry, earthy smell of stone baking and heat. Outside, the city hums. Vendors shout. Mothers scold children. Orators practice in the forum. But here, within these columns, silence is absolute. Some say his crime was philosophical, too much Greek thinking. Others claim he insulted the emperor's favorite, or questioned a war, or praised a dead general in the wrong forum. Doesn't matter. The mouth was opened. The state responded. The record ends there, his eyes close. Perhaps he is repeating something inwardly. A speech once given, a poem once recited, a prayer once whispered beneath breath. The body remembers even when the voice cannot. A wordless hum seems to fill the air between you. Not sound, not music, but presence. The kind of silence that comes only from someone who once knew noise intimately. To lose one's voice not in death, but in life. To remain present, breathing, composed, and yet excluded from the very mechanism that defines a citizen. Speech, civis Romanus sum, they used to say. I am a Roman citizen. But what happens when the citizen cannot speak the words? You notice the small scar near the side of his mouth. It disappears into the crease of his lips, or what's left of them. Others, like this man, were exiled within their own skin, silenced but not disappeared. It's made into an example that walked among the people. A lesson stitched into flesh. You've heard stories of senators who lost favor, of authors who praised the wrong God, of slaves who spoke too boldly. The punishment varied. But for those whose crime was the tongue itself, Rome answered directly. It took the thing most precious. It's a bridge between thought and world, between soul and sentence. Pale sunlight slices through narrow colonnades, its beams dusty with old pollen and the breath of marble. You step lightly, sandals against tile, skin against shadow. Somewhere nearby, a fountain trickles, not brightly, but as though reluctant. The way a surgeon removes a thorn, or a gardener removes a root that grows the wrong direction. A political prisoner, they said. Orator turned seditionist, a man who said too much, or said what others feared to hear. The details vary depending on who tells the story, but the punishment remains the same. A mouth that once shaped policy, poetry, and prayer, now shaped only in silence. The scent of olive oil and crushed mint drifts on the air, faint and ghost-like. This is not a prison, not officially, nor pleading, only aware, that he cannot speak. But still you wait, as if some sound might yet escape, or some gesture might take its place. After a long pause, he lifts his hand, slowly, not shaking now, and begins to trace lines in the air, invisible lines. A shape, perhaps a letter, perhaps a word. But you do not know how to read it. He stops. The hand drops, not in defeat, only in understanding. But punishment lives here, like mold beneath polished stone. You feel it before you see him. He sits at the far end of the atrium, upright, perfect posture. Tongue is gone. Not by accident, not by war or wild animal or childhood disease. It was taken, removed with care. You sit across from him, the way a student might face a teacher. His eyes flicker briefly toward yours. They are not dead. The procedure itself, you've heard, was swift. A clamp, a knife, cauterizing iron. In Rome, exile came in many forms. Some were sent across the sea. The man leans forward now, just slightly, as if to signal that he remembers being whole. You wonder what he said to deserve this, or if he ever said it. Rome did not always wait for proof. Suspicion was enough. You rise slowly. The man does not move again. He does not need to. His stillness speaks louder than any accusation. Somewhere behind you, a servant begins to sweep. The bristles scratch softly across the tile. Routine, unthinking. You pass a wall scrawled with fading, graffiti lines of political verse, half washed by rain, now illegible. At the edge of the street, just beyond the stalls of fishmongers and olive sellers, the smell begins to change. No longer warm bread and brine, no longer crushed thyme or goat leather. A wooden beam shaped crudely into the silhouette of a narrow animal, the so-called Spanish donkey. It is not Spanish. It is Roman, or at least something older that Rome adopted and refined. The device stands alone against the wall, its frame simple. A narrow wedge rising into a sharp edge, like the spine of an unnatural beast. First a small bag of stones, then another. The pulleys groan softly. The body lowers by degrees. The pressure increases. This is not designed to kill. It is designed to teach. That pain can be slow. That shame can be structural. That the body's own weight can be its enemy. Rome rarely used this device in public squares. It was not a spectacle. It was a message whispered in back alleys, behind bathhouses and the corners of justice no one wrote down. The wooden spine is now stained with fresh sweat and something darker. The man is lowered gently to the ground. Not carried. It's not helped. Simply placed. His body folds in on itself like cloth. He breathes shallowly, one hand resting on the stone floor, the other limp across his stomach. No words are spoken. There is no audience to impress, no sentence to announce, only the device. And the man. There's a silence between them. At its sides hang ropes, chains, pulleys. The wood is splintered with yews. Dried brown streaks line the sides. A strange altar built for a god no one names. You glance once more at its worn surface. Life has resumed, as it always does. But you walk slower now. Your own body feels heavier. You are aware of the weight of your bones, the press of skin against cloth. You pass a merchant calling out the price of honey-dipped almonds. His voice is cheerful. The pain you witnessed has no place here, but it remains with you, folded between ribs, silent and patient. The wood bears names, faintly scratched. Single letters, dates, crude symbols, perhaps left by victims or attendants, or the device itself. You will never know. You do not look away, not from cruelty, but from ritual. This too is a ceremony. The kind not entered willingly, but exited changed. The donkey does not bleed, it does not cut, it divides. The thighs begin to bruise. The groin swells. Nerve endings flare and confuse themselves. There is no release here, only pressure. Downward, inward, constant. Not fresh, but recent enough to leave scent in the grain. The change in balance has numbed something. For a moment, then the pain shifts. You watch the muscles in his jaw tighten. Fly buzzes nearby, landing briefly on his shoulder. He does not flinch. Perhaps he does not feel it anymore. Or perhaps his body is conserving its energy, saving motion for the moments when restraint will no longer be possible. The air turns sour here, fermented sweat, damp straw, old iron. But as Rome expanded, so too did its appetite for variety. Pain, like law, became more creative, more specific, more theatrical. And in private spaces like this, where the records don't reach, you find the punishments that history only whispers about. A craftsman who insulted a magistrate, a slave caught stealing jewelry, a woman who defied her husband's authority. The donkey made no distinction, it simply divided. To attendants, not guards, not executioners. Just quiet men with tired hands. Adjust the ropes around his wrists and ankles. He does not struggle. Time here is not measured in hours, but in endurance. The man sags now. His head dips forward. His back curls against gravity. The body is strange in pain, both fragile and impossibly stubborn. One of the attendants steps forward and unhooks the weights. Carefully, the man gasps, not in relief but in disorientation. The body had adapted to the pressure. Its absence is another kind of pain. His tunic is stripped down to the waist. His legs tremble slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion. You do not know what he did. Perhaps he stole. Perhaps he lied. Perhaps he looked too long at someone he shouldn't have. Here the crime hardly matters. The punishment is its own story. You turn into the alley slowly. The sun does not follow you. It is thin here, blocked by leaning balconies and canvas cloths strung across crumbling facades. The space narrows. Your footsteps echo softer, as if the very stones have grown cautious. This is not a place for spectacle. It is a place for memory disguised as punishment. You see the form of it before you see the man. The man is being prepared. The donkey punishes not with fire or blade, but with geometry. The wedge rises narrow and unyielding. The man is lifted by the arms, not violently, slowly, carefully, like a jug being placed on a shelf. The ropes creak. His feet leave the ground. Then he is lowered. Not all at once, not with a drop, but with a slow descent until his full weight rests on the narrow edge of the wooden spine. The sharp ridge presses between his legs, dividing his body along its softest center. There is no scream, only breath, sound caught between exhale and whimper. Weights are added to his ankles. Not all at once. The man shudders. His fingers twitch. A single drop of sweat travels the length of his spine and disappears into the folds of his belt. One of the attendants adjusts the weights again. The man exhales sharply, almost in relief. Punishments like this were not common in the Republic's early years. Minutes pass. Or more. He is lifted again. The ropes creak. His legs tremble. You walk past the donkey as if passing a monument. Back on the main street, the sun seems louder. The noise of commerce returns. A woman carries jugs of water. A child plays with a stick. The donkey waits. The morning heat rises not with fury, but with indifference. A steady warmth radiates from the stones beneath your feet, stones worn smooth by years of sandals and silence, pressed flat by the weight of processions and punishment alike. He is still young, not more than 20 summers, but his face carries the weariness of older men. His hands are bound in front, not tightly, but firmly. He does not plead. He stares forward, eyes fixed on the wall beyond the courtyard, where ivy clings lazily to chipped frescoes. Efficient is brisk, efficient, as if he were recording grain shipments or rainfall. It served a purpose beyond identification. It was a warning to the owner, to other slaves, to the city itself. His tunic has been returned to him, but it remains bunched around his waist. You glimpse the fresh wound again, the angry, swollen edges, the reddened center, the distorted skin. Another iron rests beside it, shaped with a different mark. Children chase each other through the dust, laughing, unaware. But you carry something different now. Not fear, not pity, just knowledge. That pain can be shaped into a symbol. That skin can carry history. That a single letter, pressed into flesh, can mean the difference between belonging and banishment. A second slave waits nearby, younger still. His eyes dart back and forth. He knows what's coming, but you step away before it begins. The tunic covers the wound now, but you know it's there. Beneath the cloth, beneath the sweat, beneath the heat, the mark does not scream. It does not even speak, but it remains. You have seen enough for today. You pass beneath an archway carved with a phrase worn smooth by years of wind and prayer. Lex est quod notamus. The law is what we mark. Fitting in the letter F. You wonder what his name is? Whether he had won before he was enslaved? Whether he still claims it in his thoughts? Or whether the brand has replaced it? The Romans were precise about such things. You were not who you were. You were who the state declared you to be. The body became a document, a sentence made visible. Some bore more than one mark. Others had letters burned into their cheeks, foreheads, or arms. Always in places that could not be easily hidden. Clothes shift. Scars do not. Rome's punishments were rarely personal. They were systematic. The brand is not vengeance. It is record-keeping. You watch the man exhale slowly, his shoulders slump forward. The soldier gestures, and the scribe nods. Physician will dress the wound later. But the mark will remain. Raised, dark, permanent. A soldier stands beside him with one hand resting on the haft of a short whip, but it is not the whip that matters today. In the brazier nearby, a piece of iron glows red. A single letter carved into its surface. F. You are no longer in the alleys or under the gaze of torture devices. A gladiator who attempted escape. SP for spectaculum, a reminder that he belonged to the games. Rome did not need long speeches. It only needed one letter at a time, and fire. Always fire. This is the administrative quarter, where justice takes a different shape. Here punishment is not hidden. It is written, recorded, filed away in ledgers and ink. But sometimes it is also branded, not just on scrolls or clay seals, but on living skin. Today, you are here to witness such a mark. The man before you kneels, his back bare to the sun. The F stands for fugitivus, runaway. A slave who has fled and been captured. This, too, is Rome's justice. Not death, not mutilation, but remembrance. The heat hums in the air, distorting the light. For a moment, you see the faint shimmer of the letter before it touches him, a red mark dancing in the air like a ghost. Then it presses into flesh. The sound is soft, almost gentle, a hiss more than a scream, a breath expelled. The man's body jerks once, then stills. The iron is removed. The skin beneath it, once smooth and young, now blisters around the crude letter. The mark is ugly, but unmistakable. It will never vanish. That is the point. To flee is not just to escape, it is to forget one's place in the order of things. And so, Rome does not merely punish the act, it makes the body remember. The iron is lifted from the coals by a blacksmith whose expression is unreadable. This is not his first brand. It will not be his last. He wipes sweat from his brow, though the morning is not yet hot enough to warrant it. Perhaps it is habit, or perhaps it is shame. The slave does not flinch as the iron is brought near. The attending scribe records the branding in a small wax tablet, noting the date, the owner's name, the name of the runaway, the place of recapture. Branding was common for runaway slaves, particularly those caught more than once. You follow the man as he is led back toward the slave quarters, limping slightly from the tension of restraint and exposure. A slave caught forging documents might be branded with falsus. One caught stealing fur, back in the courtyard. The brazier still glows faintly. The street outside is brighter. Traders call out in loud voices. A goat bleats nearby. Later, you see the branded man again. He stands near a cart stacked with amphorae, tying rope with quiet skill. His back is to you. The chamber is narrow and strangely quiet, the sort of silence that feels arranged, deliberate. You step through a threshold barely wider than your shoulders. Is clothed, but simply. A coarse shift of undyed wool hangs from her shoulders. Her hands are bound loosely in front of her, not for restraint, but to remind her not to use them. In a moderate tongue, the record does not say what she said. Whether it was accusation, insult, or confession. Her breathing is calm, measured, her body does not tremble. Perhaps the worst of it is past. Women who questioned husbands or magistrates, men who spread rumors about grain supplies or imperial decisions, servants who repeated things they had overheard, slaves who mocked their masters under their breath, all were subject to this correction. It did not matter whether the words had been true, only that they had been spoken. And in Rome, not all mouths were permitted equal weight, just enough to see you. You offer nothing, no word, no gesture. It would be inappropriate. That their voices, when finally returned, came back changed. Quieter, smaller, uncertain. Others never spoke again, not from fear, from habit. The silence had grown roots. Rome didn't need to kill the body to kill the influence. It only needed to make words dangerous. A neck stiffened, a breath held, sentence unspoken. These were Rome's invisible prisons. There is nothing you can say that she can answer. The clerk does not look up. The woman's gaze returns to the space ahead. You exit the chamber slowly, your own throat dry, your chin heavy, as if some small part of the device now lingers in your posture. Outside, the street is filled with voices again. Too many, too loud, too fast. You feel yourself slow, unsure of how to speak into that noise. Somewhere behind you, the flame still burns, the woman still sits, the rods still press upward. She is silent. And in her silence, Rome listens. You become part of her sentence simply by witnessing it, and so you return to your corner. You sit on the stone bench, the cold pressing up through your legs. Minutes pass, or longer. The flame lowers. The clerk writes again. The woman does not move, or perhaps endurance has simply settled into her bones like a second skin. Rome had no shortage of inventive punishments, but this one is quiet. It leaves no blood, no broken fingers, no shattered jaw, only a deep, private ache, a forced reverence, an enforced stillness that lingers long after the rods are gone. Whether it was a lie or a truth too early, but the sentence was clear. She may walk, she may eat, but she may not speak. Not until the 10th morning, when the rods will be removed, and she will be permitted to recite the oath of restraint, or recited a line of poetry at the wrong moment, one of those older verses from the Republic about liberty and law. Should she lean too far forward, or slump from exhaustion, a small metal chime would ring. That chime would be added to her record. After 5 chimes, the sentence resets. The rods remain longer. It is not cruelty. It is form. A ritual of exactness. Rome did not flinch at repetition. The law was a shape meant to be followed precisely, no matter what the body endured to trace it. Or perhaps she said nothing at all, and someone powerful decided her silence was too loud. No way to know. The collar makes her look taller, rigid, like a statue whose joints have been locked mid-thought. Then, and only then, she may resume life among others. A small iron rod extends from a leather collar at her throat, rising vertically toward her chin. Another rod angles up from the belt at her waist. The two meet at the neck, forming a rigid Y shape that presses gently but unyieldingly into the underside of her jaw and above her sternum. It is a device called mors in or, death in the mouth, though no one dies from it, not physically at least. The walls are stone, cool and plain, unpainted, untouched by inscription. No mosaics, no statues. No light, but for a single oil lamp hanging from an iron hook above. The flame flickers softly, casting long, spindled shadows that shift across the floor. In this place, even sound seems hesitant. Not forbidden exactly, just unwelcome. You hear only the occasional scrape of a sandal, the faint intake of breath. The stillness hums louder than any voice. Before you stands a woman, her posture stiff, her eyes forward. The purpose is not execution, it is correction. The woman cannot nod, cannot bow her head to hide her face. She cannot rest her chin without pressure. And above all, she cannot speak. To attempt a word, even a whisper, draws pain instantly. The rods are not sharpened, but they are firm, and after hours or days, the smallest movement grinds into muscle and tendon. Her punishment is not to be beaten or broken, but to be held perfectly still. Rome understood that silence can be its own form of violence. She has been sentenced to wear this for 10 days. 10 full rotations of sun and moon. For the crime of a moderata lingua. You observe her from a short distance. She does not meet your gaze, but you can tell she's aware of you. Punishments like this were often reserved for the literate, the outspoken, the inconvenient. The flame overhead sputters gently. You wonder what she might have said. Perhaps she named the wrong man in public. Perhaps she accused a priest. The attending clerk seated nearby makes note of her posture every hour, not to offer help. It's only to ensure compliance. You step forward, only slightly. The woman's eyes shift. Not far. It is said that some wore the Moors in, or for weeks, even months. You rise quietly. The path narrows as you climb. Stone beneath your sandals shifts from cobbled to natural, raw earth. Ancient and uneven, still carrying the imprint of hooves and sandals long since gone. 20 meters, perhaps less. And yet, for centuries, it served as one of the most feared execution sites in the Republic. It's not because of its brutality, but because of its symbolism. To be thrown from the Tarpeian rock was not simply to die. The condemned nods once. No tears, no outburst. Only a slow, steady turn toward the edge. His sandals scuff gently against the gravel. Gust of wind lifts his hem, revealing pale ankles thin with age, and flesh cutting the air. A flutter, a thud, a silence too deep to name. The priest bows once, then departs. The magistrate marks a line in his wax. The wind shifts again. You step forward, not to the very edge, but near enough. Senators given the dignity of final words. Some were allowed to leap of their own volition. Others were nudged by invisible hands. Rome preserved its appearances. The air smells faintly of dust and rosemary. Somewhere below, a dog barks. The city lives on, unaware or uninterested. That is the genius and cruelty of Rome, that it continues. It does not pause to mourn its fallen. The laws remain intact. The market opens. The baker needs his dough. Senator is already becoming history. Oh, but the edge never softened. The stillness, the quiet, the grace, even in disgrace. It was not spectacle. It was ceremony, a ritual older than fire. The world looks different from here, not larger, just quieter. You try to imagine the moment before the step, the weight of a lifetime measured in silence and stone. No one is above the law. You trace the letters once, gently, then turn back toward the path. Rome lies ahead. And behind you, the rock waits, patient, silent, immutable.
Yes.
The edge not as punishment, but as punctuation. A full stop at the end of a once-admired sentence.
What?
He lands out of sight, on the slope of rock hidden by brush. Betrayed the city to its enemies in exchange for what she believed were gold bracelets, only to be crushed beneath their shields as punishment. Her body was cast from this very height, making her the first, in some versions, to fall from grace here. Since then, the cliff has become a place not only of execution, but of symbolism, where law ends and consequence begins. There will be no body displayed. No funeral, no urn. The family will mourn in private, if at all. His name may be scratched from some records, left untouched in others. Rome is inconsistent that way. Memory is political. The fall, however, is real. He pauses for a moment, facing outward, the entirety of Rome sprawled below him. You imagine what he sees? The temple of Saturn, the rooftops of his childhood, the domus where his grandchildren sleep, unaware. It was to be erased from Rome's grace. A rejection not only of the body, but of the soul's place within the order. A death not born of heat or flame, but of judgment rendered from above, without spectacle, without song. The body would fall. The city would move on. That was the ritual. To your left, the Capitoline Hill rises gently. To your right, The sheer drop of the Tarpeian rock waits in silence. There is no guardrail, no fence, just open air, dry grass, and the long hush of wind that sweeps up from the forum far below. The view is magnificent. Golden roofs stretch toward the horizon. Temples gleam faintly in morning light, and senators move through the shadows of colonnades like ghosts in togas. But you are not here to admire the view. You are here to witness what happens when a Roman falls, not by sword, but by gravity. The rock is not high. Today it is a senator who stands at the edge. His robes are immaculate, still pleated in accordance with dignity. A gold clasp glints at his shoulder. He wears no chains. His hands are not bound, and yet his posture is heavy. His head bowed, not from guilt perhaps, but from the weight of disgrace. No crowd has gathered, only a handful of officials. A priest of Jupiter, a magistrate with wax tablets tucked under one arm. The man himself remains quiet. His lips do not move. If he prays, he does it inwardly. Rome expects composure, even in condemnation. It's crime, betrayal of oath, a whisper of conspiracy. Perhaps an allegiance offered to a foreign prince, or a secret deal struck over wine and olives. The truth matters less than the message. Rome cannot allow corruption within the Senate to go unmarked. But it also cannot stain itself with the blood of its own elite. And so the rock. It absolves the state of the need to touch the body. The earth takes care of the rest. The priest murmurs something, a ritual phrase older than the empire, older than the stone beneath your feet.
Oh, yeah.
And then he steps. There is no scream, no struggle. Only the brief, unmistakable sound of cloth. You remain still.
No.
The Tarpeian rock takes its name from Tarpeia, a young Roman woman who, in legend in earlier times, traitors were marched here publicly, bound, jeered, stripped of titles as they climbed. Later, the rituals grew quieter, more refined. You sit now on a nearby stone, the breeze brushing against your cheek. And yet you remember, not his name. That too may fade. But the way he turned, the way his shoulders settled before the final step, as you stand to leave, your hand brushes against a mark carved into the stone, a faint inscription, it's nearly worn away. Nemo supra legem est. The air inside the Colosseum is not loud, as you might expect. Not at first. Breathes, deep and slow, like a beast resting just beneath its own skin. The walls here are close, scraped by claws, and men alike. You pass a barred enclosure, and inside it paces a lion, not large, but powerful. Its coat is dull with dust, its eyes golden and bored. There are records of beasts turning away, pawing the earth in confusion, or lying down beside their victims. When that happens, guards may intervene, prodding the animal, driving it to finish what the sentence demands, but sometimes rarely. Mercy lingers. A lion sniffs and leaves. A bear paws and retreats. The lion emerges, the same one you saw, pacing. Its steps are deliberate. The crowd holds its breath. The man does not move. He stands in the center, unarmed, exposed. The lion pauses, sniffs the air. Its tail flicks once, twice, then it begins to circle. The magistrate makes a gesture from the stands, subtle, practiced. The moment stretches, then a second lion is released. This one younger, hungrier. It does not hesitate. The man's head lifts. He sees it coming, and this time there is no mercy. You watch the distance between them shrink, a few feet, then less. The animal lowers its head. The man remains still, and then the lion turns away. The crowd roars, not from cruelty but from release. The tension broken, the story restored. The lion drags him across the sand, and in Rome, even a moment is enough to linger. It's not to eat, just to prove its purpose. Within moments, the sand is red. The second lion withdraws, panting. The first still lies near the wall, eyes closed. The show is over. In such moments, the crowd murmurs, unsure whether to cheer or jeer. The man will not be buried. His body will be removed, carted off, burned, or left for other beasts. No name, no tomb. Only a line in a clerk's log, fed to the beast's amphitheater. Noon. Rome prefers certainty. Nature does not always comply. It does not roar. It does not lunge. It simply moves, back and forth, as if pacing out a memory it can't quite forget. Or perhaps he is simply beyond fear, as the doors ahead groan open. The arena awaits. Sunlight floods the tunnel, blinding after so much stone. You follow at a distance, watching as he walks forward into the brightness. This time, it stops just a hand's breadth away. Its breath lifts the edge of the man's tunic. A paw touches his foot, but no claws. Just wait. Then the lion moves again, walking toward the arena wall. It lies down. The crowd erupts into noise now, a strange blend of awe, disapproval, and curiosity. This was not what they came for. The crowd stirs. Not a roar, but a rising breath. The arena is massive, the floor of it stained with sand and iron. Shields glint from the upper tiers. Vendors shout. Children lean forward. Somewhere, a senator sips watered wine. None of them know his name. They will not ask. The animal, like the condemned man it will face, is not truly angry, just hungry and trained. You walk under the great arches, past columns stained with dust and memory. Stone and shadow cradle the structure like bone beneath old flesh. The sun falls in wide slats through the openings above, catching in motes of chalky dust. You're in the belly of the thing now, not where the audience sits, but beneath, in the corridors carved for animals, prisoners, and instruments of spectacle. You smell hay, sweat, and old blood. You hear chains rattle. Somewhere a gate creaks, and closer still, a low, deliberate growl. You follow a passage lit by torches. It's not brightly, just enough to remind you that the world above is still watching. A guard nods for you to continue. You pass a row of cells, each small, dark, barely tall enough to stand. From one a faint cough, from another silence. In the last, a man sits with his back to you. He wears a simple tunic, tied at the waist. His feet are bare, his hands unchained. He is not a gladiator. He has not been trained for combat. He is a prisoner, sentenced not to death exactly, but to performance. Damnatio ad bestias, condemnation to beasts, not an execution, a display. You step quietly into the cell. He turns slightly, eyes flickering toward you, but saying nothing. You do not ask what he did. It hardly matters. Theft, blasphemy, treason, Christian prayer, all have led men to this place. Guilt is not the defining feature here, only visibility. Rome does not kill in the dark. It kills in daylight, with applause. Stretches his fingers, stiff from confinement. His voice, when he finally speaks, is calm. They say the lions don't always attack. He is right. Sometimes they hesitate. Sometimes they wander the arena, disoriented by heat and noise. The man stands now. He smooths his tunic. He does not look afraid. A gate creaks at the far end. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Disappointment, confusion. The man does not smile. He only breathes. The beast paces, comes closer again. The guards at the edge shift. One steps forward with a spear. The lion growls. Low. Real. The guard hesitates. The attack is swift, not graceful. Claws find skin. The man falls. You step back into the tunnel. The crowd begins to shift, already thinking of lunch, of other games of wine and shadowed arcades. And yet, you remember his stillness. The moment the lion turned away, the breath he took in defiance of death. It did not last. But it happened. The wheel waits in the dust, casting no shadow yet. It is early still, the hour before the market stirs, before sandals scuff the stones, before voices rise to greet another Roman morning. Rota supplici, the wheel of supplication, the wheel of suffering. It is not fast. It is not grand. It does not require lions or fire or flame. His knees have buckled beneath him, but two guards hold him upright. He does not beg. His mouth hangs slightly open, breath shallow. His legs follow. He lies across the frame like a drawn star. The wheel does not spin freely. Not yet. It's just the sudden sound of iron against flesh and bone. A dull thud, followed by a breathless stillness. It drifts into the morning air, carried by breeze. No one speaks. The guards look away. The scribe continues to write. The physician watches closely, not to comfort, but to ensure life persists between fractures. That is the measure. The man must remain aware, if not awake, then present enough for the sentence to be felt. It was a sentence that turned the body into a map of crime. Each break an echo of wrongness. Each spoke a reminder of order restored through pain. Not all wheels killed. Some were used only to bind, to expose, to display the brokenness of the offender until the elements or birds or time completed the work. The wheel remains, tall, still balanced, a perfect circle of wood and sinew and silence. In another age, it might be mistaken for a symbol of eternity, or faith, or life unbroken. But here in this field outside Rome, it is something else entirely, a symbol not of completion, but of what happens when the body itself becomes law. But here, today, the wheel does all three. The man does not scream, not yet. The first break is clean. The shin, the bone yields beneath the weight. The smell is not sharp, not fresh blood, but something deeper. A crow lands near the edge of the clearing, tilts its head. The man does not move, but he breathes. You count. 4 seconds between inhales, then 6, then 8. Time slows. The wheel, now silent, seems almost asleep. And yet, its work continues. Bone marrow, torn ligament. The scent of the inside made public. You do not flinch, you only watch. No. The executioner wipes the bar against the wheel's rim. A ritual gesture, then turns away.
Oh.
His work is done. The magistrate recites the closing words. The body will remain here until sunset. Then it will be taken, burned, and scattered. No tomb, no name. Then again, the thigh. Then across to the arm. Each strike methodical, each limb shattered, but left attached. The wheel begins to take the body into itself. A wooden wedge is wedged beneath it to steady it. The air grows heavy. The first implement is chosen, a heavy iron bar, smooth along its shaft, darkened at the ends with wear. It is not sharp. It is not clean. It is made to crack, not cut. The wheel looms beside him, taller than a man, wide enough to stretch a body across. Ropes hang from its spokes like limp vines. At its center is a hole, the axle socket dark and deep. This is not theater. This is arithmetic. Bones counted and broken in sequence. The man's body twists with it, bones grinding against broken spokes. It is not designed to kill immediately. In fact, it rarely does. Most victims linger hours, sometimes days, unless granted Gracely Moore's the mercy blow to the chest or throat. That gift is rare and not today. Today the sentence is full, just precision and time. You approach slowly. There are no crowds yet. It's only a handful of officials in simple cloaks. A physician, a scribe, final strike. Not to kill, but to complete. The ribs this time. Soft cracking, less dramatic than the limbs, but no less painful. The man's breathing is wet now, slow, but present. His eyes flutter. One arm dangles loosely, rope slackened from swelling. The physician nods. He will not last the day, but he will last the hour. That is sufficient. And the condemned man. You stand at the edge of a clearing outside the city wall, where the earth is flatter, quieter. Here, surrounded by a low ring of weathered stones, sits the device. It leans slightly on its axis, supported by 2 iron stakes driven deep into packed soil. The wood is pale and old, scarred with grooves, where ropes have bitten, where bones have broken, where history has repeated itself again and again. It is called the breaking wheel. It's not uniquely Roman. The Greeks used it, the Gauls, the Carthaginians, but Rome gave it rhythm, ritual, and name. It is already there, shirtless, barefoot, wrists bound. The sentence, as read aloud by the magistrate, lists the man's crimes: robbery, assault, murder of a nobleman's son. The method of punishment: per fracturum osseum in rota, death by the breaking of bones upon the wheel. It's not for public display, but is formal retribution, an offering to order. The scribe marks the scroll. Physician steps forward, eyes already scanning the man's limbs as if anticipating what will remain. The guards lift him, not roughly, but without hesitation, and bind him to the wheel. His arms are spread wide, lashed to spokes with coarse rope. The magistrate nods. The executioner lifts the bar. There is no count, no drumbeat. Now the man cries out. Not a sharp scream, but a drawn groan, raw and cracked. The wheel is turned now, slowly, deliberately. The wedge is removed. The dust beneath the wheel is marked with blood and splinters. The earth itself seems to absorb the rhythm. The bar rises again. Rome did not use the wheel often. It was reserved for the symbolic, the grotesque, the disobedient made into geometry. You step closer. Still, you linger. The wind picks up slightly. When you finally turn to leave, you glance back once. The courtyard is shaded, still and fragrant with crushed herbs and slow-burning incense. Not the thick smoke of sacrifice, nor the acrid scent of punishment. This is something quieter. Her hair is braided carefully, dark and glossy, threaded with a single strip of white cloth. Her posture is perfect. Shoulders square, hands resting lightly on her thighs, gaze fixed forward. Not fearful, not quite calm either. Her hands are steady. The girl does not look up, only a subtle sense that something has been passed. A threshold. A beginning. Or perhaps an ending. The girl lowers her gaze now, not in shame but in ritual. The ash has done its work. A single pinch of ash is lifted, small, delicate enough to taste but not to harm. The altar stands unchanged as it has for centuries. Soldiers returning from battle marked their brows with ash and humility. Mourners wore it in their hair. Priests used it to cleanse. She bows once toward the altar, once toward the elder priestess. Then she is led through a side passage, disappearing behind a linen curtain. Her role will change now. She will light the lamps, tend the flame, recite verses beneath her breath until they are stitched into memory. Will learn not just reverence but restraint. And she will carry, always, the taste of ash, not on her lips, but in her mind. A reminder that faith in Rome is not loud. It is quiet, bitter, and patient. It was the sign of what had passed through flame and remained. To eat it was to internalize that process, to claim even momentarily that what has been burned can still hold meaning. See other girls watching from behind lattice screens, younger still. Their eyes wide, unsure whether they witness ceremony or warning. She does not speak, but her gaze is inquisitive. Perhaps she's wondering why you're here if you belong. Or if you, too, are being tested. She glances toward the girl, then back to you, then nods. The faintest acknowledgement. For a moment, you too, imagine the ghost of ash. Not approval, not warmth, just inclusion. You return the nod. She turns away. You remember now? Rome never needed whips in places like this. It preferred symbols. And if the flame went out, the vestal was blamed. If a vow was broken, the punishment was severe. The petals in the basin drift to the edge. The dish of ash is returned to its place beneath the altar. The priestesses resume their positions unmoved. The ritual has passed. But something remains, an aftertaste, dry and ancient. You walk back through the colonnade slowly, the scent of lavender giving way to fresh air. Outside, Rome begins to stir. A cart rolls by, piled with wool. A vendor calls out the price of cherries. A woman scolds her child for running too fast. But long before punishment came, the training. Quiet, strange, symbolic, ash on the tongue. Fire in the hand, days without speaking. Nights spent sleeping upright, lessons stitched into the bones. The priestess gestures once. The girl opens her mouth. The ash is placed upon her tongue. The fragrance is sweet, but faint. You dip your fingers in. She remains kneeling unmoved. Her mouth is closed now. The taste lingers. You can almost feel it. The chalky residue coating the back of the throat. Not painful, just persistent. The kind of discomfort designed not to overwhelm, but to train. If she had gagged, the priestesses might have reconsidered her worthiness. If she had flinched, her name might already be struck from the registry. But she didn't. She endured. And so the ash, in all its quiet bitterness, becomes something else. Permission. The water is cool. The petals shift with the motion, delicate and directionless. You wonder how many of them passed this same ritual, how many swallowed the ash, knelt in silence, and rose to lives defined by stillness and service. Some, perhaps, felt pride. Others, doubt. but none spoke it aloud. That was not allowed. Words mattered here. One wrong syllable could mean disgrace. Or worse, for a moment she does not move. You imagine the texture, dry as bone, light as dust, bitter with the memory of burned laurel and oil-soaked wool. It coats the tongue, clings to the roof of the mouth. The girl's throat tightens, but she does not react. Her eyes flicker. She swallows, a kind of focused stillness. Around her stand 3 women, older, robed in pale gray, faces partially veiled. They do not speak, they observe. On the altar rests a small clay dish. Inside ash is cold, gray, and finely ground, mixed with the crushed remains of burnt offerings. Sacred ash, and today she must eat it. Laurel, myrrh, and lavender curl gently in the warm air. You cross a square of polished marble tiles, each veined with faint red streaks like dried petals pressed beneath glass. Everything here is soft, intentional, a silence that does not punish, but tests. You pass under a colonnade where sunlight flickers between fluted pillars, dappling your tunic in gold. At the far end stands a low stone altar, and before it, kneeling on a linen cloth, is the girl. She is very young, perhaps 15, no more. This is not a punishment, not formally. It is a rite, a test, a ceremony of loyalty performed by the novices of certain priesthoods, including that of Vesta, where silence and purity are held not just as ideals, but requirements. At this stage, the girl is not yet sworn. She is still being watched, evaluated for discipline, obedience, reverence. The ritual is simple. Accept the ash, dry and bitter, without complaint, without cough, without hesitation. The body must obey the will must mirror the state. Rome admires this kind of harmony. The eldest of the women steps forward, lifting the dish. This is enough. The priestess nods. The others step back. There is no applause, no words. You walk slowly around the perimeter of the courtyard, your footsteps hushed against the marble. In one corner of the courtyard sits a small basin filled with water and floating rose petals. You return your gaze to the girl. The Romans were skilled in such transformations. Ash was more than residue. It was purification. Fire consumed offerings. Ash marked what remained. One of the older priestesses approaches you now, her steps whispering against the stone. The girl rises at last. Her movements are slow, ceremonial. As the sun rises higher, the courtyard begins to warm. You hear it all, but distantly. Your tongue presses against your palate. The forage has not yet cooled, though the morning is half gone. You hear its breath before you see it. That low, pulsing hum of heat trapped in stone, the metallic rasp of tongs drawn across iron, the quick hiss of water meeting steel. You follow the sound through a narrow passage that smells of soot and scorched linen. The air is heavy here, dense with the musk of sweat, the sting of smoke, the strange sweetness of charred oil. Clings to your hair, your sleeves, your lungs, but no one coughs. No one complains. The air around it sings faintly, the sound of heat dancing on breath.
Ass.
The scent of seared flesh curls upward, not unpleasant, just final. A clerk steps forward, inspects the wound. He nods. Satisfactory. The man is untied. He stands slowly, stretches once. The skin where the brand now lives is already red, raw, ringed in angry blisters. But he does not touch it. He only gathers his tunic and nods once to the attendant. Got cart rolls past, its wheels creaking in time. A woman calls to her son. A merchant scolds a slave. The heat lingers on your skin long after you step into the sunlight. You glance at your own shoulder, your own wrist, your own thigh, untouched. For now, but Rome does not forget. It only waits. But here, within these walls, all is still shaped by heat. The iron is drawn again. The brazier exhales. The cycle continues. No word is spoken. No record is read aloud. The punishment is complete. But it will speak for years. The man closes his eyes. No, not from fear. From calm. Gladiators bore marks too. Not always letters, but symbols. Denoting origin, ownership, or offense. Circle for desertion, triangle for theft. Some were branded for perjury, others for defiance, still others for merely being born into the wrong class with the wrong ambition. The skin became text, the body, a document of crime and correction. The brand is pressed into the flesh above his shoulder blade, high, visible where no tunic will fully cover. The sound is sharp, a kiss of heat against skin. Then the sizzle, fast, high, almost bird-like. Then silence again. The iron is lifted, the mark remains. In this part of the city, breath is a tool, and obedience is shaped in flame. The branding room is quiet. It is not large, not like the grand atriums of state or the echoing chambers of law. Just stone, soot, and silence. A brazier glows at its center, squat and round, with iron bars laid across its rim. This one marked with F Fugitivis. Again, you've seen this before. You step back. The next man is younger. His wrist shakes slightly. The guard grips his arm.
I'll not harshly.
Just firmly. His eyes dart toward the door and downward. He will carry the mark like the older man, not just on his skin, but in the way strangers' eyes pause at his sleeve. In the way a mother pulls her child a little closer. In the way merchants glance down at the scar, then at the coin, and decide the price has risen. One of them glows faintly red, its tip marked with a letter. Sharp, severe, and unmistakable. The iron shimmers as heat ripples above it. The mark on the skin ensures that forgetting is never an option. A man might regret, might repent, might rebuild, but he may not erase. The brand remains, not just on his body, but in the way he is seen. It is a scar that talks louder than words. You wonder how many walk the streets marked, though you'd never know unless the tunic slips, or unless they no longer care to hide. Nearby, a wooden bench sits beside a low stool. Two men wait. One is seated, hands tied at the front. The other stands behind him, arms folded. A magistrate? A guard? You cannot tell. Rank matters less here. What matters is permanence. The man being punished is older than most. Hair gone thin, cheeks hollow from age or hunger, or both. His tunic hangs loose at the shoulders. But his eyes are sharp. He does not tremble. Not exiled, but stained. Someone whose name carries dishonor. A man who can no longer testify in court, who may not inherit, will never again hold title. Infamy, that strange category of social death, not removed, but marked, forever known. And that knowledge made visible is what comes next. More than anything, unsettles you. He watches the branding iron without blinking. Perhaps he's seen it before. Perhaps he simply accepted that the body in Rome is not entirely one's own. The man behind him speaks softly to the attendant. A short instruction, a number, a word. The letter is lifted from the flame. K, the glow is ready. It will not last. Move closer slowly and see the shape of it. Infamous. Not a criminal, exactly. The iron is brought forward. There is no scream. His lips tighten. That's all. Branding in Rome was not reserved for the lowly. Even freedmen could be marked, should they violate contract or custom. The brazier is fed again, a second iron placed into its mouth. You think of how Rome preserves its hierarchy, not just through law or force, but through memory. Outside the room, the noise of the city seems distant. You leave before the next mark is made, not out of fear, out of knowing. The villa is quiet. It's not in ruin, nor in mourning, but in the poised stillness of a place that knows what is coming and no longer resists it, but the unbleached gray of home. His sandals are off. His hair, once curled and thick, now thins above his temples. He does not acknowledge you with words, but with a nod, the sort given by men who have already considered every question and have chosen not to waste breath on answers. He sets the cup down with care, and he reaches for the cloth, dips it into the water, and begins to clean the inside of his left arm. The gesture is gentle, familiar, like a father cleaning a child's wound. He dries the skin, then unwraps the blade. On the small table beside him rests a shallow dish of warm water, a linen cloth, a cup of wine. A senator facing exile or disgrace may choose the blade instead. Seneca, the younger, the stoic philosopher, opened his veins at the Emperor Nero's command, dictating calm thoughts as the bath filled with blood. The scroll lies open on the floor, the wax seal smeared from the heat of the room. Small breeze flutters the edge. The blade has fallen to the side, half hidden by shadow. The discipline of a final act performed not for glory, nor for fear, but for order. The air smells of rosemary and dust. You pause, glance back once. The door is still open. The breeze stirs the linen curtain. And somewhere inside, a man lies still. Not punished, not destroyed, but completed. In Rome, that is dignity. Rome did not demand his death. It offered it. And he accepted. Not because he had to, but because it was expected. Because even in death, a Roman may still serve the Republic. By stepping aside, the cloth is soaked, but neatly folded, still clutched in his hand. Everything here is arranged. Even the mess feels deliberate. Lucan, the poet, recited verses as he bled. Others went more privately. A bath, a knife, a line. Bird lands on the edge of the basin, tilts its head, then takes flight again. The sky is clear. Somewhere, a boy leads a goat through a dusty lane. Life continues, as it must. The servants will find him soon. They will not scream. They will know what to do. The bath will be drained, the bench washed, the scroll taken, a stone marker. Perhaps, or perhaps nothing at all. His name will be spoken carefully in the Senate, if spoken at all. There may be an elegy or a silence. Rome does not elevate them as martyrs, but it does not forget them either. Their deaths become footnotes, morals, sometimes warnings. The cut is shallow at first, then deeper. A bright line appears, then spreads. He switches hands. The same motion, same control. No trembling. He leans back against the bench. The cloth falls from his fingers. The scroll rolls to the floor. A faint line of red trails down his wrist and disappears into the folds of his robe. A general fallen out of favor may write a final letter, wash his hands, and open his veins in the bath. You only listen. To the sound of wind, to the creak of the roof beam, to the quiet drip of blood onto tile. Death arrives not with thunder, but with gravity. Quiet, steady, inarguable. It is not seen as weakness. It is control. An act of alignment with Roman virtues, dignity, order, sacrifice. To take one's own life in the shadow of state punishment is to reclaim authorship of the final chapter. And, half wrapped in cloth, a slender bronze blade. Not ornate. Not ceremonial. Simple. Direct. A philosopher's weapon, if there is such a thing. In his hand he holds a small scroll, not to read, just to feel the weight of it. He has read it many times. The words are short, an imperial summons, phrased with courtesy but carrying the full weight of death. A command not to appear in court but to accept his end before the state must intervene. The floor beneath your sandals is black and white mosaic, slightly uneven from age. No chains will be fastened. The empire has not condemned him to public punishment. It has offered him a choice: blade, a bath, a bowl of wine. The gesture is gentle, even honorable. He may die as a Roman should, privately, cleanly, with the dignity befitting his status. This is the privilege of the patrician class, to fall on one's own terms. Before disgrace arrives, wearing the uniform of justice, it depicts no scene, no myth, no figures of gods or beasts, just a pattern. Interlocking lines, geometric and measured. This too feels fitting. Everything here is restrained. A single oil lamp burns in the corner. A low breeze stirs the fabric over the doorway. And in the center of the room, seated upon a simple wooden bench, is the man who has chosen to die. He is older now but not frail. His toga lies folded at his side. Not the formal white of ceremony. This is not an execution, not exactly. No soldiers will arrive. You sit across from him. He begins with the wine. Slow sip. Not a toast, just ritual. Tastes of oak and age. Rome has always respected suicide under the right conditions. The man before you makes no dramatic gestures. It's no final speeches, no poetry. He lays the blade flat against his forearm, inhales once, and presses down. There is no panic, only stillness. The body begins to cool. He closes his eyes. Breath slows. Moment passes. Then another. You do not speak. Many before him have chosen this path. You look at the body before you. His face is serene now. The wine remains untouched beside him. You rise slowly. Side the olive trees sway gently, but you remember. The sound of breath slowing, the decision made in quiet. As you step through the archway and into the sun, you feel the warmth settle on your shoulders. Night in Rome arrives not with darkness, but with a change in texture. The way the air thickens just slightly, the way shadows lengthen, and lose their sharpness. You are walking slowly now, sandals scuffing against the old stones, worn smooth by centuries of comings and goings. The sky above is a faded blue-black, soft as fabric, stretched low over rooftops and chimneys that still exhale the day's final smoke. The torches have been lit. Not all at once, just one by one, along the Via Sacra, flickering amber in the distance. It is a city settling, but not asleep. Rome, as ever, sleeps lightly. Inside, a crude terracotta figure of a household god leans slightly to the left, surrounded by melted wax, feathers, and olive pits. Someone has left a scrap of cloth tied around the base. A prayer, perhaps. A name. You do not read it. You do not need to. The gods here are not grand. They do not demand blood or empire. They ask only to be remembered. And in Rome, that is no small thing. How many names were lost with the wind? How many lives folded into the stones beneath your feet? Perhaps thousands. To have seen how even cruelty in Rome could take the shape of order, and how even those condemned by its systems carved quiet defiance in the way they stood, or fell, or swallowed ash without blinking. Perhaps more. Perhaps even you one day will be among them, not as witness, but as echo, a sigh in a corridor, silence in a crowd, not feared, not praised, just remembered. You pass a fountain whose water murmurs, slow and half forgotten, like a lullaby with no lyrics. But now, under the slow fall of evening, it feels softer. The torches below shimmer like floating coins tossed into the hands of unseen gods, and for a moment, everything is still. The breath of the city slows. The punishments fade into memory. The faces drift to shadow. Even Rome, endless Rome, exhales. They come not as ghosts, but as echoes, shapes against your closed eyelids. They do not ask to be mourned, only to be acknowledged. You breathe, and the breath feels older than your lungs. They are faint tonight, washed in the haze of cookfire smoke and torchlight. But they're there, eternal, or so it seems. You sit at the crest, looking out over rooftops and ridgelines, your knees pulled close beneath your cloak. Below, Rome sleeps lightly. Somewhere a dog barks once, then again. The marble columns, so proud in sunlight, appear more skeletal now, not weak, but bare. They were symmetry, broken limb for a broken law, a brand for a stolen name, a fall for a failure. Beneath it all, beneath the cries and cracks and torches, a stillness, the kind that lingers long after the punishment ends. You walk among them slowly, as if among gravestones. Each pillar a name, each step a memory. You pause beside one and rest your hand upon it. The stone is cool, familiar. It does not judge, it simply endures. Olive trees rustle gently. The scent of rosemary clings to the folds of your tunic. Do you remember? You've walked with those who carried flame and silence in equal measure. You've stood beside the sack sewn shut with parricides and beasts. You've knelt before the wheel and watched bones bow beneath iron. You've heard the hiss of flesh branded and the whisper of ash dissolving on a novice's tongue. You've seen men leap from cliffs and lions hesitate in blood-soaked sand. You've tasted the silence between words and watched the mark of obedience seared into skin. From a window above, a woman hums a song older than the stones beneath your feet. Rome is not a city that screams, it remembers. Slowly, deliberately. Its cruelty is not always cruel. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it smells of warm bread and basil and whetstone. Sometimes the worst of it passes in ritual. In law, in gestures so practiced, they no longer seem strange. And the city continues, as it always has, by folding these moments into itself, like parchment sealed with wax. One more decree. One more sentence. One more punishment carved not into tombstone, but into time. You pause, listening. Not for long, just enough to feel that the city, this vast, brutal, glorious machine of empire and memory, has exhaled. Not finished, never finished, but resting briefly in the hush between punishments. It is easy to forget, in the stillness of twilight, what the city has seen. And yet here in this moment, none of it seems loud. You stop at a small shrine set into the wall. A votive niche, chipped, faintly glowing. You turn again, toward the forum. By day, this space echoes with the stomp of sandals and the scrape of iron. In your mind, the faces return. The girl with ash on her tongue. The man who knelt beside the donkey's spine. The senator who took his own life with no audience but a breeze. Rome punished in many ways. Through spectacle. Through silence. Through steel and fire and forgetting. But always it did so with structure. The rituals were not chaos. You climb the Palatine slowly now, just as the stars begin to emerge. You wonder how many of the city's punishments are remembered, and yet, maybe that is enough to have passed through this place, to have stood beside its rituals. You rest your head against the wall behind you. The stone is cool. The world tilts slightly. Maybe we haven't changed as much as we think. Thank you for being here. Sweet dreams.